most diverse, we chase the light. Cohort Season 7, rise. On the blockchain we are wise. Innovation in our eyes.
Awesome. So should we get going?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, first of all, thank you everybody for coming, and thank you to Tay and to Deacon for organizing this and for inviting me to come share a little bit of what's in my head with all of you. The reason that I have welcome to DAOs on the screen is not because all of you are new to DAOs, but because they're my favorite thing. And I just want to share a little bit of my journey through DAOs, which includes RaidGuild, with you, and kind of where we're at in the world with DAOs, and hopefully that will offer up some ideas for things to build, or things to get excited about, or things to avoid, maybe. So welcome everybody to RaidGuild cohort number 7. I can't believe it's the 7th cohort. Tay and company have been doing an amazing job, and it's one of the coolest things in the space, bringing new people into DAOs, into Web3, into building in this beautiful space with us. So let's get going. So I guess I want to just give a quick overview of myself, what I've been up to over the years. First of all, my name is Spencer, or Spencer Graham is my full name, and sometimes on the internet I go by Spengra, which is kind of a combination of my first and last name. If you happen to say Spengraph because it kind of looks like that, that is okay, but there's no P at the end, so it is Spengra. So my story really starts actually way before before this slide, in like 2017 or so. I was kind of just poking around, getting really excited about Ethereum and blockchain stuff in general. But it wasn't really until 2020, when I went to ETH Denver for the first time, that I started building things. And what my hack at ETH Denver was something called SaveDai, which we can get into way more at some other point if you'd like. But that kind of started to introduce me to some of the stuff that was going on, and I met some cool people, including a couple members of RaidGuild, and they were also working on something called Clear Fund, which is still around, which is a privacy preserving and collusion resistant quadratic funding mechanism or protocol. And from them, I got introduced to some other people at RaidGuild, and I was like, oh, this sounds really cool. I'm going to join. And I joined RaidGuild, and was also working on something called Commit Pool at the time, which was sort of a way to make commitments to yourself to work out a certain number of hours or times per week, and get slashed if you didn't do that. But within RaidGuild, I'm like almost hesitant to talk too much about this now, because I'm going to get into it a little bit later. But RaidGuild was this incredible experience. It was like really the first a home that I found within Web3 beyond my local city meetup. And it was incredible because I didn't know anybody. I had met a couple people through ETH Denver and hacking, but other than that, I didn't really know anybody. And everybody was totally new, but almost immediately I felt like I was in this very safe space where I could experiment and take risks and learn and build cool stuff. And along the way, as a result of that, I was able to kind of magically create all these incredible relationships with many people that I still consider really, really good friends and kind of collaboration partners today. A number of them are in this room and in RaidGuild still. And it was that safe space created by the fact that RaidGuild was, and still is, a DAO that was just a transformative experience for me. And I fell in love with what DAOs could be. And also, a little bit later, a number of people within the RaidGuild family were also working on a DAO House, which is the platform that RaidGuild and many other DAOs still use today to manage and operate their DAO. And so I was very excited about that opportunity to build for others the experience that I had and was having within RaidGuild. So I ended up contributing at DAO House full time for 2, maybe even more years, and fell further in love with DAOs, further in love with what they could mean for the world, the change that they could bring to humanity's relationship with power, the improvement in how we do things and how we manage things and how we don't allow things to fall into the hands of people who are going to exploit them. But when you fall in love with something, you also get a really close-up view of all of its warts. What it means to fall in love with something is to understand it better than you possibly could imagine you would understand it before. And I started to recognize, and this is nothing new, lots of people are recognizing these things, but I started to really feel them deeply, that there were some fundamental challenges that DAOs were facing. And at DAO House, we were facing a lot of them ourselves, and a lot of the DAOs that we were working with were like bumping their heads up against these challenges. And so I started thinking about, well, first, what is actually even a DAO really? Like at its heart, like what is it? What makes a DAO unique relative to some other kind of organization? And that led to the development of a framework and an article that I published called Anti-Capture, that really digs into like the meat of what DAOs are and what they can mean. And shortly after, I also started playing around with some ideas for some technology that might help DAOs solve or address some of their like critical challenges. And that ended up transforming into the project that I have been working on now for a little over a couple of years, which is called HATS Protocol. And we can get more into HATS Protocol in a little bit, but that has been kind of my journey so far, and I'm extremely honored to have been a part of kind of some of the formative years of RaidGuild and DAO House and the DAO space. And I'm also very, very excited to continue this journey with hopefully all of you. So what the fuck are DAOs? In my opinion, DAOs are the most and can be the most effective and best organizations that humanity has ever had. DAOs are all about governance, but governance is not just about making decisions. It's not just about voting. It's also about taking actions. So what organizations do, and let's see, what's my next slide? Yeah, okay, great. So what is a DAO? So first of all, a DAO is an organization. And what is an organization? An organization is, you can think of it as a network of agents, people, other organizations, groups of people, etc. And they all have some kind of common purpose. And in service, or sort of to go after that common purpose, they have a set of shared resources. And those shared resources can, oftentimes we think about them as money, as like funding, but they can also be all of the things and the other assets and tools and capabilities that the organization has. You can also think about attention of an organization as a resource, or the communication mechanisms or communication pathways within an organization as a resource that the organization as a collective shares and needs to manage. So that's an organization. But what makes an organization a DAO? What makes an organization a DAO is that it's only that organization that can execute actions or use the organization's shared resources. And that makes a DAO autonomous. It can't be captured from the outside. No agents or people or agencies or institutions or governments can take that organization's resources and push them into doing something else, or take them away for some reason or force the organization to do something. Also, crucially, a DAO is protected from capture by agents inside the network. It's resistant to internal capture. And this is what we mostly think about when we think about decentralization. So no one person, like there's no CEO of a DAO. The CEO of a DAO, if that were such a thing, would probably have so much power that they could capture some of the resources and put them to their own interests, like flying all over the world on a private plane just for private vacations, as one example. So it's really crucial that in a DAO, and like the special thing about a DAO is that everybody, all the agents that are in that organization, all the members of the DAO, all the contributors, have a say and have not just influence, but like hard, real control collectively over what the organization does. It's not just a CEO. It's not just a small board that controls everything. It's not just the investors that control everything. It's everybody that collectively controls things together. And that has a huge impact on the experience of being in a DAO. And this is really what I felt when I joined RaidGuild and was so happy as a member of RaidGuild for so long, that it means that as an individual, you are autonomous as well. So not just the organization as a whole, not just the DAO. It's not the case that only the DAO is the autonomous thing and it's sovereign, but as an individual, you can operate with autonomy within the organization. You decide what to work on. You decide who to work on it with. You decide when you're going to work on things. You don't have a boss that has kind of unilateral control over you. Of course, there are constraints that you have to follow so that you kind of comport with the rules that the DAO has set up for itself. But you choose how you are going to behave within the organization, subject to the constraints that you yourself had a say in creating. And it's this beautiful experience that is highly attractive to top talent, to the best developers, to the best engineers, to the best product people, to the best communicators. And that is one of the reasons that I think that DAOs can be the best organizations that have ever existed. Moloch DAOs are really, really great at this. So RaidGuild is a Moloch DAO. DAOhouse, Moloch DAO as well. The Hats Proto DAO, which is not a full DAO because the Hats core team still has control over it, and we want to be very honest about that. Also a Moloch DAO. So why are Moloch DAOs so good at this? And it really comes down to the strength of the decentralization, the strength of the individual autonomy that all of the members have. And that is undergirded by the concept of rage quit. If you're not familiar with the concept of rage quit, basically it means that many of the shared resources in the DAO are subject to being removed proportionally by any of the individuals in the DAO. So it really is like a superposition of shared resources and private resources. As a member of a Moloch DAO, I have put my resources into the pool. I am sharing them with everybody, and we can do amazing things because of the economies of scale of more resources, shared resources. But at the same time, if at any point I feel like my resources are not being put to better use than I could do so myself, I can take them out of the DAO. I can kind of take them out of the pool and go my own way. And at any time, if the collective, if the community, if the DAO feels like I or somebody else is not behaving in a way that the rest of them, that the community likes, they can kick me out, or they can kick that person out with rage kick or guild kick. And it's this balance of individual autonomy with group collective cohesion that creates the kind of safe space that I found so exciting and magical when I first joined RaidGuild. So one of the things I really hope that all of you get out of working with RaidGuild, and if you end up joining RaidGuild, I hope you feel that. I hope you feel the magic that kind of structure and organization creates. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that DAOs have faced and are honestly still facing. And I think they boil down to two, or really one big giant trade-off. So why do we want to talk about this? One, because we love DAOs, but we want to make sure that we're constantly being improving how DAOs work. And that means that there's lots of opportunities for building new stuff and solving new problems. And I think a lot of those problems, if you look at them, if you kind of zoom out, they boil down to this trade-off between wanting to do stuff, get shit done, accomplish goals, but at the same time avoid capture of the resources that are needed to achieve those goals. So why do we DAO in the first place, right? We put our resources into a pool because pooled resources, we can do more with them than we can on our own, right? With our own just individual private resources. We can be more effective by working together. But at the same time, we have to make sure, we have to be careful that one of us isn't just going to take everything and run. That would be very bad. So we're constantly having this playing, we're kind of navigating this trade-off. And a lot of DAOs have, I think, they are challenged with over-indexing on the second thing, on capture resistance. They are very afraid of their resources being put to the wrong use, that they are not able to put the resources to the right use. They put up all these barriers and they create all these challenges and introduce all of this coordination overhead required to put things their resources to a good use, that they make it too hard and they end up failing at their goal. Of course, this is not all DAOs, but by and large, I think DAOs overall can be a lot better at balancing this trade-off. Traditional companies are like not very good at this trade-off. They look good because that's what we are used to seeing, and we've had lots of economic growth over the last century or maybe two because we've had these traditional organizational structures like corporations. But like traditional companies, they can be reasonably effective in achieving their goals, but they're not very good at resisting capture, right? Like the story of the CEO who like just flies the private plane all over the place is almost boring in a sense because it's so common. Executives and other people are embezzling money all like left and right. And as a result, we have all these like hugely onerous laws that have to be put in place to protect investors and employees against this kind of stuff. And so the capture resistance properties of traditional companies and organizations are frankly not very good. And that does limit their effectiveness because we have all these onerous laws as a result. Think about all the regulations that companies have to adhere to, which often are on net really good or on net beneficial, but they still limit what is possible. And they introduce a lot of cost into the system. So DAOs like solve in some sense the capture resistance problem, right? We collectively control our resources, so we can introduce all these interesting like smart contract enforced constraints on what is possible, so that no individual person can just take all the money, or nobody can. It's very hard to collude to just take all the resources. But as a result, we've like shifted inwards on what we can do. We've made ourselves less effective than traditional companies, but that's not how it has to be. We can, using smart contracts and using new capabilities, we can shift out that frontier and we can become even more effective than traditional companies while not giving up our capture resistance. And this is the problem and the opportunity space that I've been working on, and that HATS protocol has been, I think, leading the charge on for the past a year or two. But we're not even close to really solving it. So there's a lot of really interesting work to be done. And I want to invite all of you not to necessarily work on HATS, but to think about the problems that DAOs face in terms of these concepts, and think about the ways that you can help to build new capabilities for DAOs. And this might mean working on something pretty narrow, but that like is contributing to this bigger picture or this bigger objective. And this might mean working with clients in RaidGuild on something that they're building, but thinking about how you're doing that within the context of RaidGuild as putting into practice some of these principles. I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to talk about why RaidGuild, I think, has been so successful for so long. And that is because RaidGuild, from the very beginning, had this really strong concept of roles. At Hats Protocol, and one of the reasons I ended up building Hats Protocol, because I found that roles are a fundamental building block of organizational structures, and they're like a really amazing abstraction and way of thinking about and operating an organization to create the kind of clarity and concentration of responsibility without concentration of power. We can do lots of really, really interesting things. We'll go back to this when we are working with roles as an atomic unit. And RaidGuild has, and this is just a subset of the roles that are in RaidGuild. This is actually from the Hats app and the RaidGuild organizational structure within expressed on chain as Hats. RaidGuild from the very beginning has this really crisp understanding that roles are important, and it's necessary to be clear about what roles people have, whether that's what guild they're in, whether they're a warrior or a wizard or a monk or a paladin or a druid or an archer, and as well as what projects they're working on, what they have committed to doing within a given raid. And I think that's been why RaidGuild has been one of the biggest reasons RaidGuild has been so successful and persisted for so long, when so many other DAOs have kind of failed and died and haven't really achieved what they set out to achieve. And I just want to underscore that what you're about to embark on is a journey into an organization that really actually has what it takes to succeed, and has what it takes to give you the ability to succeed on your own, both as part of this collective and as individuals on your journey within Web3. I could go on for way longer, but I'm gonna stop there, and hopefully this is a happy start to your raiding careers.
Yo, check the mic, 1, 2. Squeak, squeak, it's Hammy G. Descending into the abyss where things get funky, see. This ain't no Disney flick, no cheesy cartoon chase. This more looks fair, a bureaucratic soul-crushing space like Dante's Inferno, with more paperwork and fees and